One of the terms that Governor Desantis used in his press conference and has been bandied about is judicial hellhole.
And for a number of years, we were ranked #1 in the country for being what they call a judicial hellhole.
There's a publication, as you can guess who it's written by. It's written by the insurance companies and written by people that want to do tort reform. So you can take statistics however you want to take statistics and mold them to your benefit. And so what they've said for the last number of years is Florida is one of the most litigious states in the country. It's a, quote, judicial hellhole. What that means is their analysis by the insurance companies is they believe that there's been more lawsuits filed in the state of Florida than in other states, and that there's been more recoveries in the state of Florida, big recoveries, than in other states. You never learn what actually gets paid. So what happens in a lot of cases, you read, and the most interesting thing is you read a $28 million verdict. What you never read about is that case going up on appeal, that case sometimes getting overturned on appeal for whatever reason, and then they never have to pay that amount, and or it gets resolved after the fact for a much lesser amount. I will be the first person to admit, when I was in law school, I did a study on punitive damages, and I took the position punitive damages were out of control. That was my bent at the time in law school, and I believed it until I started doing the research. And the research told me almost no one gets punitive damages, and the very few times they get them, they're rarely, if ever, paid. And oddly enough, I'm old enough now, it was one of the big cases at the time was the McDonald's case, where the woman got $2.8 million. But what she really ended up getting was much less than that, a low six-figure resolution after everything was done. But the most interesting part of that case, which I found out when I actually did some research on it, I just saw the big $2.8 million and said, that's ridiculous. She was offered, she said, I'd take $12,000, pay my medical expenses, and I'll be done. And McDonald's said no, and they were able to prove that McDonald's kept their coffee 30 degrees hotter than everyone else. It would cause burn on contact, and there was a lot of things that they proved to get that type of verdict. But the reality is, we all saw that type of verdict, right? We saw $2.8 million. What we never saw was what she actually got paid when all was said and done. So that's what's very important when you hear these giant verdicts, because what you don't hear, and what I tell clients all the time, you don't hear about defense verdicts because they're not interesting. A story I have about defense verdicts is when I was a defense attorney, I represented a car dealership, and every day, this was back when newspapers were reporting stuff every day there was a report about this sexual harassment case in the paper. And just the salacious details. There was a report every day of the salacious details of this sexual harassment case. There was 2 women bringing against my dealership. You know what they never reported? After 5 days of trial, so 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they reported about the trial. They never reported on Friday the verdict came out, my client was found to not have committed anything wrong. Because you know why they didn't report that? That was no longer interesting, because defense verdicts are not interesting. And that's the problem, is what you see in the industry, what you see in articles, what you see online are these crazy verdicts that frankly never get paid. But what you don't see is all the times the insurance company wins that gets not put in the, because it's not interesting. It's not interesting here. The insurance company didn't have to pay, they paid $0 in this case, or they paid $10,000 in this case. And that's why I think it's deceptive when you're looking at whether Florida is a judicial hellhole, because the reality is the legislature has done everything in their power to give all the possibility to the insurance company to make it as easy as possible to get the lowest possible verdict. And one of the ways they've always done that is making sure you have to prove a permanent injury. And that's where the case and the fight lies. And we can tell you, as someone that's done this now for 25 years, the insurance company is going to find a doctor that's going to say you're not injured. And that doctor is going to testify every time that you're not injured, and more importantly, that you don't have a permanent injury. And that's going to help them push down those verdicts and keep down those verdicts.